There is a specific kind of protagonist that a story is not supposed to give you. Not misunderstood, not redeemable, not someone who finds himself through the fight, just a predator. Someone who gets beaten, humiliated, broken down to nothing, and then gets back up. Not because he's brave, not because he's noble, because he doesn't know how to stop. What the hell drives this guy? He gets beaten down, pummeled, knocked senseless, has nothing left, and still he gets back up, just to get pummeled a bit more. You will ask that question from chapter 1. You will still be asking it in volume 20. And by the time this manga answers it, if it answers it, you might not be entirely sure you wanted to know. That's Shamo, written by Tanaka Akio, with some authorship complications we will get into, published in Weekly Young Magazine starting in 1998, running for 31 volumes and wrapping in 2014. Seinen, action, drama, psychological horror, all of those tags apply. None of them quite capture it. I'll be honest, this was sitting on my list for a while because I had a personal stake going into it. I practiced karate myself for 27 years, stopped about 12 years ago, and when Ryo Narushima starts learning, the commands came flooding back. Maigiri, Chukishudan, Gedanbarai, Mawashigiri, all those memories surfaced before I'd even hit volume 3. That was unexpected, and it made what the manga does with those memories significantly harder to watch. Before we go any further, if you're new here, hit subscribe and drop a like. It helps the channel and it's genuinely the least you can do while I wait through 31 volumes of manga that decided a protagonist should not be allowed to have a single moment of grace. Let's set this up. Ryo Narushima is a high school student who one night kills both of his parents. The manga does not flinch from this. It shows it. He ends up in juvenile detention facility, and there he starts to learn karate. Shamo is like a mix of a couple of films I really love. Kickboxer meets Rocky meets Karate Kid. But where those films use combat as the road to becoming better, Shamo uses it as something else entirely. It's the instrument through which Ryo becomes more himself. And more himself is not a destination you're going to enjoy arriving at. The Weekly Young Magazine pedigree matters here. This ran alongside Berserk and Elfenlied. Those series understood that darkness has to do something. It has to mean something, or it's just noise. Shamo knows that too. It is not gratuitous, it is systematic. Tanaka Akio's art does one thing that I cannot stop thinking about. The karate techniques are meticulously accurate. Every maigiri, every wamashigiri, the geometry of the technique is correct. The body weight is distributed correctly. The impact point is correct. And because you can see it's real, when someone gets hit, you feel it. Not in the way hyper-stylized fight manga makes you feel impact. In the way you'd feel it standing there, in the body, before the brain catches up. Tanaka draws it like documentation. Not glory, no spectacle. The sweat detail, the post-impact deformation of the flesh, the specific expression a face makes when it absorbs a full-force kick to the jaw, all of it rendered with the care of someone who wants you to understand exactly what is happening and exactly what it costs. This is how the art argues. Not by being spectacular, by being honest. Here's what separates Shamo from almost every other fight manga in this genre. Most of them make a promise. Train hard enough and violence becomes noble. Baki is a power fantasy, and it's an honest one. Holyland has a redemptive arc baked in. Even the grimmer entries in the genre eventually let skill redeem the violence it required. Shamo refuses that promise entirely. The training makes Ryo more effective. It does not make him better. What it gives him is precision, and precision in the hands of someone who fundamentally does not care about the person he is hitting is not a heroic trait. It's a threat. And the manga watches this with the same cold attention it paid to the karate techniques. Clinically, accurately, without applause. The patricide is not a backstory detail. It's the load-bearing wall of the entire manga. Every relationship Ryo forms, every fight he wins, every moment where you briefly think he's going to turn a corner, the patricide is the floor beneath all of it. It cannot be undone. His time in juvenile detention establishes the pattern. Ryo is good at surviving, not because he fights smart, though he does, because he fights like someone who has already decided that what happens to him doesn't matter. You can't intimidate someone who isn't protecting anything. The karate world he enters after release sharpens him. Teachers, competitors, people who briefly seem like they might matter. The manga uses every single one of those relationships to show you what Ryo does to people who get close. There are foils, competitors who chose the same path for different reasons, instructors whose ethics don't survive contact with him. The manga is good at showing you what Ryo could have been, might have been, but is definitely not. And then there's the ending, which has a reputation. I'll say this carefully. It does not give you what you think 31 volumes of this story is building toward. Whether that's a failure or a final statement about what this manga was always doing, I'll let you decide. It's not the ending I expected. I found myself unexpectedly feeling something closer to sympathy for Ryo than I thought this manga was going to allow. That's either a flaw or the whole point. Here's the reading of Shamo that I don't think gets made often enough. This is not primarily a story about Ryo. It's a story about every institution he passes through and what those institutions do when they encounter something they cannot process. The family failed first. The legal system processes him. Juvenile detention contains him. Neither changes him, because the assumption embedded in both, that a person who has done something terrible can be corrected, turns out to be wrong in this particular case. Martial arts culture does the most interesting thing. It takes him seriously. It sees the precision and gives it structure, and then it watches what he does with that structure. Tanaka doesn't let the karate world off the hook. Instructors who train Ryo share some of what he becomes. The culture that produces champions has no mechanism for asking what kind of person the champion is. Every institution is complicit. None of them are villains. That's the harder argument. And it's the one this manga is making underneath the surface. Content warnings, and I'm naming them plainly. Patricide depicted on page. Sexual violence. Prolonged torture sequences. Graphic fight injuries rendered with anatomical specificity. The manga is not trying to shock you, but it is not trying to protect you either. Skip this if you need the protagonist to redeem himself. Skip it if 31 volumes of watching someone get grimmer and more competent without moral improvements sounds exhausting. If you bounced off Homunculus or Happiness because the pacing made you feel trapped, this will do the same thing for 31 volumes. Read this if you finished Berserk and wanted it more grounded and less mythological. Read it if you loved monsters, moral ambiguity, but found the thriller plotting too clean. Read it if you practice martial arts or used to, and you want to see those techniques depicted with the honesty they rarely get. Ryo is not the protagonist you get in this genre. He is not fighting to protect someone. He is fighting because the alternative, stopping, being still, being nothing, is not available to him. The karate world gives him structure. It doesn't give him purpose. Those are different things, and Shamo knows the difference. What makes him compelling in the worst possible way is that you understand him without agreeing with him. His backstory is not a justification, but it's a map. You can trace the route from where he started to where he is, and the tracing is the point. By the end, I found myself feeling something I hadn't anticipated. Not sympathy in the conventional sense, something closer to recognizing a person who every system failed and who was too far gone by the time anyone thought to ask the right questions. Shamo's supporting cast functions less as characters and more as mirrors and foils. Competitors who chose the same path for different reasons. Instructors whose ethics don't survive contact with Ryo. Figures from the fighting underworld who represent where he's heading. He is the worst case scenario. Some of them are close seconds. The instructors are particularly interesting. They see his precision, they train it. The manga holds them accountable for what they helped produce. Not in a heavy-handed way, but structurally. Their complicity is structural, not individual. My rating for Shamo is an 8.1 out of 10. What it does exceptionally, the karate and fight choreography is the most technically accurate I've encountered in the genre. It earns every consequence it depicts because the technique is real. The institutional critique running under the surface is generally sophisticated. The manga is doing more than showing you a disturbed protagonist. It's asking how he got there and who else is responsible. And Ryo himself is one of the most uncomfortable protagonists in seinen, not because he's one-dimensional, but because by the end, despite everything, I found myself feeling something I did not expect to feel for him. What holds it back? The ending is divisive for a reason. It doesn't close the argument the manga spent 31 volumes constructing. It stops. And the authorship situation. Tanaka Akio had collaborators whose involvement affected the series' direction. Introduces a consistency wobble in the middle volumes that is real, even if the core remains strong. Read this if you want a fight manga that takes its own premise seriously. Read it if the genre's usual promises have started to feel hollow. Skip it if you need a story to decide, in the end, what it thinks of its protagonist. Shamo watches. It documents. The verdict is yours. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far through 31 volumes of watching Ryo Narushima be exactly who he is, you've earned the right to have an opinion about the ending. I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. Does Shamo's ending land for you? Or does it undercut everything the manga built? There's no right answer. There might be a wrong one. Let's find out. Like and subscribe if this is your kind of rabbit hole. I'm Jan. See you in the next one.